When a company like Union Pacific drops its earnings report, it's not just numbers on a page. It's like a checkup for the entire US economy. Seriously, every single boxcar they move tells us a story about what we're making and what we're buying. So when their CEO comes out with a really bold claim about 2025, yeah, you bet we're going to dig into that. Let's get right to it.
So there it is, a record-breaking year. That's straight from the top, from CEO Jim Vena. I mean, that's not just confident, that's a huge claim. So the big question for us is simple. Was it really a record year? We're going to put that statement under the microscope, look at the numbers, see what's actually inside those boxcars, and find out if they truly hit it out of the park in 2025.
And, right off the bat, the top line numbers, they look pretty darn good. I mean, look at this. Net income is up 6%. That's over $7 billion. Earnings per share up 8%. Their operating ratio, we'll get more into that later. It's a huge deal. That improved. And they're boasting their best ever safety results. So on paper, yeah, it looks like a home run. But the real story, the interesting part, is how in the world they pulled it off.
Okay, so how did they do it? Well, their success in 2025 wasn't just about volume, just moving more cargo. It was all about efficiency. Moving it smarter, moving it faster. They basically focused on running a much, much tighter ship. And believe me, the results really start to pop when you look at the details. Take a look at this. First, we've got freight car velocity. That's basically just how fast the trains are moving. In the fourth quarter, they cranked that up by 9%. That means goods are getting where they need to go a lot faster.
Then there's terminal dwell time. This is a huge one. It's how long a rail car just sits around in a rail yard waiting. They slash that by 9% too. So less sitting around, more moving. And get this, they did all of that while also making their trains longer, 3% longer on average. Now, why does that matter? Well, longer trains mean you're moving way more stuff with the exact same crew, the same amount of fuel. It's a massive win for efficiency. So you add it all up, what do you get? You get a 3% jump in workforce productivity. When you've got faster cars, less idle time, and longer trains, it all just compounds into a much, much more productive railroad. It's pretty impressive. Okay, so operationally, they're firing on all cylinders. But the financial side of things, well, it's a little more complicated. It's kind of like a good news, bad news situation. To really get it, we've got to look at the whole year, but also zoom in on some, let's say, interesting signals that popped up right at the end of the year. And a lot of the time, the whole story really boils down to this one key number, the operating ratio, or OR for short. The easiest way to think about it is like an efficiency score for the railroad. It tells you how much it costs them to make a dollar. And just like in golf, the lower the number, the better you're doing. Simple as that. And for the full year, Union Pacific absolutely delivered. Look at this. They brought their adjusted OR down from 59.9% to 59.3%. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but trust me, in the railroad business, shaving off over half a point is a huge deal. This right here really backs up that whole record year story. But here's the plot twist. When you zoom in and only look at the last 3 months of the year, the picture changes. Their operating ratio actually went the wrong way. It got worse. It jumped from 58.1% all the way up to 60%. This is that little warning sign I was talking about. It tells us that even though the year was great overall, they hit some turbulence as they came in for a landing. By the way, I've said the word adjusted a couple of times. You might be wondering what that means. It's pretty simple, really. It just means the company is taking out any weird one-time things, like, say, a huge land sale, so we can see how the actual core railroad business is doing. It just gives us a cleaner look at their performance. So let's move beyond the pure financials for a second, because what Union Pacific is actually carrying in those boxcars, that tells a fascinating story about the U.S. economy as a whole. It's like a real-time snapshot of which parts are heating up and which parts are starting to cool off. First, let's just get the lay of the land. Their business is split pretty evenly into 3 main chunks. You've got industrial, think chemicals, plastics, that kind of stuff. That's the biggest piece. Then there's bulk, which is exactly what it sounds like. Coal, grain, you name it. And finally, premium, which is mostly cars and those big shipping containers you see coming off of ships. Okay, and this slide is where it gets really interesting. Because in that last quarter, the economy basically had a split personality. On one hand, you have sectors that are absolutely on fire. Look at coal and renewables. Revenue up a whopping 23%. Fertilizer up 10%. So energy and agriculture are booming. But look at the other side, the stuff that's more tied to you and me, the consumer. Intermodal revenue, that's those shipping containers, dropped 9%. That's a classic sign that people are buying fewer imported goods. And even food and refrigerated shipments are down. It's a real mixed bag out there. So what does this all mean for the future? I mean, they had this record year, but it ended on a bit of a shaky note. So what's the game plan going forward? Well, Union Pacific has been pretty clear about their outlook for 2026, even if it's a little bit cautious. First off, the company's own forecast is for a muted economy. That's their word, not mine. It's pretty cautious, right? But even with that backdrop, they're still planning to raise their prices faster than inflation, and they're aiming for mid-single-digit growth in their earnings. For investors, they're sending a signal of stability. They're still planning to spend over $3 billion on capital projects and keep increasing those dividends. But there's one more really big piece to this puzzle, something huge happening in the background that could be a total game changer. While they're dealing with this soft economy day to day, they're also navigating the regulatory maze for a potential merger. And if it goes through, it would create America's first ever single coast-to-coast railroad. I mean, we're talking about a massive, industry-shaking move. And that's really what it all comes down to, isn't it? It leaves us with this one big question. Union Pacific has absolutely proven they can run an incredibly tight, efficient ship, and they have this massive vision for a future coast-to-coast network. But the big unknown is the economy itself. Is being really, really good at running a railroad going to be enough to power through what they themselves are calling a muted economy? That right there is the multi-billion-dollar question for the year ahead.